Okay, well, good morning, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's Exploring by the Seat of Your Pants event. My name is Joe Grabowski, and I'll be your host for today. We are officially getting nicely into November, and we have a whole bunch of stuff coming your way this November. Virtual field trips to places like the Vermont Institute of Natural Sciences and Eden Project in the UK. We have a series all about plants exploring our green world. We've got another cool series looking at human health, things like the brain, and using video games to help recover from different injuries. And then we are continuing our If Then series, where we are showcasing amazing women in science from around the world. So this series is with If Then, but also in partnership with Frontiers for Young Minds Journal. And basically, we've been jumping around and sharing all kinds of amazing stories, from radiation to earthquakes to computer science to the world's cutest mammal, the pika, to deep sea exploration. And we're going to continue our adventure with If Then ambassadors right now. So joining us today, we have Dr. Cori Lathan joining us. She is a neuroscientist, a biomedical engineer, and a tech entrepreneur. And she's using technology to help people do things better. She co-founded AnthroTronix, which is a tech innovation firm, and has made things like a robot to help kids with disabilities, sensor glove to train surgeons, a virtual reality system to study astronauts in space, and even a computer game to track your brain health. So we're going to join her right now, and she's going to show us some of her really cool inventions and maybe even introduce us to some fun robot adventures as well. So let's get Cori in here live with us right now. Hey, Cori, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good, good. It's so great to have you joining us live from, looks like your lab space today.
Well, I'm actually at the Kid Museum in Bethesda, Maryland. It is the largest dedicated makerspace in the entire United States. So I'm excited to be here. It's one of my favorite places to come. It spurs on my creativity, my curiosity. I get to play with robots. I get to play with electronics. So I love this space. So I'm happy to be here today.
All right, that sounds pretty cool. Well, Cori, we have classrooms joining us from across Canada and the US today. Some of them are in camera spots. In fact, why don't I pop a few in right now so they can say hi, give a big wave to some of those classrooms who have their cameras on already. There's some of them there. We'll have you live with us right now. And then we have a whole bunch of classrooms who are joining in live via YouTube. So don't be shy. Say hi in the chat section. You can send your questions there as well. And when the time comes, I will read out some of those questions as well. But Cori, I think it would be great just to dive right in. Take us into your world for a bit.
Yeah, sure. So just a little bit of me before I jump into my slides. My background is in neuroscience. So I studied biology and psychology and then neuroscience. And it's in aerospace engineering. So at the time, I was very interested in the medical applications of space travel, and the field of biomedical engineering didn't exist yet. So my degrees are actually in aerospace engineering and neuroscience, and then I went on to be a biomedical engineer and started inventing technology and products. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about that. Let me turn on my screen share, and we'll dive right in. All right, let's see, here we go. All right, I should have my screen up now. Had to shoo a student out of the way. So inventing the future, that's actually what I wrote a book called Inventing the Future, and that's how I see the world. The best way to predict the future is to create it. So over the past 25 years, my company, AnthroTronix, anthro-human, Tronix, instrumentation or technology. I've used humans and technology and put them together to shape the future. So it all started a long time ago. This is me in the second grade, and I loved Star Trek and Star Wars. So I loved thinking about the technology that enabled us to work in space. I loved the holodeck and the tricorder and the replicator. And I just thought it was so cool, this technology that could help us to live and work in space. And so I thought, well, maybe I could invent that kind of technology. So I started thinking, what does it take to be an inventor? Like, how do you become a tech inventor? Well, you know, it's seeing that there's a problem out there. So for example, Josephine Cochrane in the 1800s thought, why am I washing dishes by hand? Can I create a machine to help me wash dishes? Brilliant, right? So she saw a problem and she said, I'm going to try and invent something to solve that problem. And there was a huge market for it, right? We all have dishwashers. Well, you know, I didn't have a dishwasher for most of my life, but that's another story. So then there's also this idea of you have technologies that are emerging, like artificial intelligence or robotics or virtual reality. And those technologies usually develop for one purpose. So for example, robotics really came out of automation. How do we automate factories so that it's not just all humans in a line putting things together? That actually it's how do we get robots into factories? But then once the technology was developed, oh my gosh, can we use this robot for surgery too? Could we use this robot to explore the oceans? So once there's a cool technology out there, then the next question is, what can we do with it? So in the mid-90s, a lot of these technologies were emerging. And for example, virtual reality. I told you my background was in aerospace engineering. Well, NASA was trying to figure out, how do we train astronauts in space? How do we train them, for example, to control robots? We don't really know how they're going to be able to perform in space. So me and my colleagues proposed using virtual reality. It was a new technology. And so you can see in this picture that one of the astronauts, Greg, is wearing a virtual reality headset. And that flew on the International Space Station. We put together the system. We didn't develop our own virtual reality system. We bought one that was available on the market, and we put together different types of sensors and software, and we created a virtual reality system that flew on the International Space Station to train astronauts to control things like robots. So then I thought, well, you know, there's all these sort of these sensors that are emerging as technology. Wouldn't it be really cool if we could put sensors into gloves so that kids with disabilities maybe could control a robot, or an astronaut could control a robot, or a surgeon could control a robot? Wouldn't that be a really cool way, instead of using these little joysticks, to just use your hand? And so we actually did that. We developed a glove that has sensors in it that can be used for lots of different applications. And we had all sorts of different people using this glove to create music, to control a computer, to control a robot. So it was a really cool way of looking at how can we use technology to capture our natural movements. Well, then I want to tell you one more story actually of invention. The story of Cosmobot. So when I was a young professor, we were asked to work with a place called the National Rehabilitation Hospital that works with kids, and it works with people with stroke, and it works with all sorts of people with disabilities. And I decided to help kids because all kids are trying to reach the same, what we call developmental milestones, right? Every child is trying to learn how to read and write. Now, when you're younger, every child is trying to learn something called cause and effect. So this little boy here, he had cerebral palsy, which is a condition that means that sometimes you don't have control over your body. And so he was having a hard time learning that he could actually have an effect on the world. So he didn't really understand that his movements could control things around him. So we hooked him up to sensors and we had him control a robot. So now when he raised his arms, GestureBot, our robot, would raise its arms. So that was super cool. So then we made our robot a little bit more complicated. And we put a computer in our robot, and you see one of the versions right here. This is an early version of a handheld computer. Now, this was before smartphones. So this computer actually cost a lot of money. So it really wasn't very affordable. So we realized even after we developed this educational robot that coached kids and taught them how to read, how to play Simon Says, for example, as a game to teach them receptive language skills. So we couldn't do that. So we couldn't use Cosmobot. So what we did is we said, let's figure out how we can work with these kids with really cool software and a computer device that replaced a keyboard. So very few of us use computers with keyboards anymore, right? Most of us use laptops, but this was meant to replace a keyboard so that kids with disabilities could actually control the mouse on the computer by pressing down, things like that. And there was a microphone so they could talk to the computer too. And this was a long time ago. So this was before that became very common. So with that, I want to switch gears. Oh, there's the final picture. This was called Mission Control, and it starred our robot. So I want to switch gears and just transition to talking about how we all are curious and we all have creativity. And I believe that we're all inventors. So I'm going to challenge Joe to a little bit of to a little game. So let's switch back, and Joe.
All right, I'm here.
Okay. Yes, so Joe, all right, so I want to challenge you to a little game. And so in this game, I'm going to give you a name, a type of person, and I'm going to give you kind of a technology. And you and I are going to dream up some inventions. So
Okay.
I have some cards here. Let's see. Here's a good one, a kindergartner. All right, so we're going to invent something for our kindergartner. So think about what kindergartners like and need, and then let's pick. Here's a good one, clock. And I'm going to throw in robot since one of the themes is robot. So let's say you had a robot and a clock, and you needed to invent something for a kindergartner. Let's think about what could that be. What could that be? And any of you, if you think of something, throw it in the chat. If anyone else thinks of a cool idea of what we could invent for a kindergartner that uses a clock or a robot.
Okay. So I will watch the chat to see what comes in, and I should be able to think of something. I think if we work together, my wife is a kindergarten teacher, so she's with kindergarten students right now. So she would definitely have an idea probably instantly for us here. But
what about, I have an idea. How about a robot that teaches a kinder time? I love it. Yeah, so an educational robot that actually is teaching them how to tell time. Nice.
Yeah, I've got a few here that came in. Well, there you go. Our Fab 4-5s in Ontario said that exactly, a kinder time. And then we've got a class in Illinois who think a big clock with a computer that can talk to the students and tell them things about the time of day.
Oh, I love it. And I was thinking, instead of, those bells that go off in school, you could have like a cool robot that just comes in and does your bells for you, so you don't have that like crazy bell that goes through the whole school.
Yeah, or we could have a robot at snack time. It comes out and delivers snacks to the tables at snack time. That would be pretty good. Yeah.
Nice. Oh, I love it. Okay, can we do one more? Do you have time to do one more?
Absolutely. Let's do it. Yeah.
Right. Let's see. What do we have here? How about a teacher?
Okay, that's a good
one.
one.
So now we have a teacher, and we have, let's see, what do we have here? We have a boat.
A teacher and a boat, okay.
Teacher and a boat, and I don't know, let's do a robot again. A teacher and a boat and a robot.
Okay, a teacher, a boat, and a robot. All right. I think we already have ideas coming in from we still have ideas coming in about the clocks. Here on YouTube, we've got a classroom saying the robot could shut off the alarm on the clock that goes off in the classroom. That's from a grade 5 class.
Nice.
That's what they're thinking about. But we're going to change gears. We're going to think about the robot, the boat, and a teacher. All right. So I'm going to go really specific. I'm thinking for teaching sailing, that you could have a robot that maybe helps identify different parts of the sailboat or make some of the functions easier on the sailboat for the teacher while they're teaching. Our 4-5s say, how about it teaches people how to drive a boat? Ooh, I like this one. Illinois, the robot transforms into the boat.
Nice. Oh, that's cool. Awesome. Those are all great ideas. So, something happened here.
I still got you. Yeah, we're still here.
All right. I think the screen just fell asleep. So, all right. Well, great. Let's see. What I wanted to do is just, I wanted to just challenge. So can you see my screen again? I just want to end with some my slides with some resources and just a challenge.
Yeah, of course. If you want to share one more time, I think that's maybe what you saw change on your screen is that the screen share turned off.
The screen share fell off. Okay, all right.
But I still have answers coming in. I've got a boat tester to get your license. I've got a robot that can teach a unit about floating or how to build a boat. Propellers to talk about directions. On YouTube, what do I have on YouTube? This is from grade 5, a robot that changes into water. Okay, so that's interesting. So the teacher can drive on the roads. Interesting. There's some interesting ideas coming in. Oh, and I see your state. I see it sharing again. Let's get that back up front.
All right, it doesn't look like it's sharing through is it just sharing through my computer screen now? Am I looking at you?
Yeah, let me see.
I can't tell which camera it's using. I think the share screen stopped sharing. So
that's okay. I can see right now. It's in the presenter view, but if it's just a couple slides, that's fine.
Yeah. I just really wanted to end with the challenge of what will you make tomorrow instead of what did you do today? What did you make today? And what will you make tomorrow? And just think about who is in who you have your parents, you have your sisters, your brothers, your friends, and you have all sorts of cool tools at your disposal. What are you going to make? What are you going to make today, and what are you going to make tomorrow? And then I just wanted to put these resources up there that are just really cool resources about inventing. There's a Smithsonian link. There's the link to this kid museum. There's a link to the Robotics Education and Competition Foundation, which has competitions using a lot of the robots that you can see in this room. And so with that, I wanted to open to questions.
All right. Perfect. We got you nice and front and center. Okay, before we do questions, Cori, while you were presenting, I pulled a little small Kahoot quiz together behind the scenes.
Nice.
So we're going to give our students a chance for a little friendly competition. and see how well they were paying attention today. So I'm going to share my screen.
Oh, can you see me?
Do we have you back on screen? No, you're there. You are. You're back.
Yep. Okay, great. Sorry.
Yeah, no worries. Okay, I'm going to share my screen and we're going to get our classes ready for a quick little game of Kahoot. And then we'll go to Q&A. We have tons of classrooms with us. So if you're on YouTube, you can start sending your questions in early. And to our camera classrooms, I'm going to start visiting you guys very soon. And we'll start to grab some of your questions. So you need to go to Kahoot.it. If you go to Kahoot.it, it is going to ask you for a PIN number. And I have one of those coming up, loading on the screen right now. So Kahoot.it, then you're going to go to 181016 as your PIN number. If you have a Chromebook or a tablet at your desk, you can join that way. If not, maybe your teacher could pop this up at the front of the room. You could shout out your answers to him or her. If you're at home and you have a tablet or a cell phone, you can scan that QR code. It'll bring you right in. If you can't get in, play anyways and see how you do. So we've got lots of students joining, which is great. While we do have those students loading, I'm going to visit a classroom or two, and we'll see if we can grab an early question or two as everybody gets ready and into their positions. So I am going to go, who should we start with? Let's go to our class in California. Miss Barha's class is hanging out with us. And let's check in and see if they have a question for us while we wait for the Kahoot to load. Hi, guys. Looks like you have your tablets. You're getting ready to play. That's great. Perfect. All right, so they're ready to play. Let's check in with our Fab 4-5s. How are we doing, Fab 4-5s?
Good! Do you have a question?
You do have a question? All right, go for it.
Sure. Ask it. Who helped?
Who helped with the inventions
for the MS?
For the MS.
For the who helps the inventor with creating it? Like the glove or
who helps the inventor create things?
Yeah. Yes.
Oh, that's a great question because it's very rare for an inventor to do it all themselves. It's pretty much impossible. So one of the great things about where I am now at the Kid Museum is that especially as a young inventor, you can come in and you can ask for help. So you could say, I have this idea, and they have all of these different facilities and rooms where they can help you create a prototype using cardboard or even some electronics. So finding people, whether it's at a place like the Kid Museum or whether it's at your school, finding people who can help you bring your idea to life. And you can start off with just a sketch. You can just sketch something on a piece of paper, but then absolutely talking about it to your friends and to your teachers and people who can really help you bring it to life. It takes a lot of people to bring an invention to life, for sure.
All right. Thanks, 4-5s. I think things have slowed down on the Kahoot joining. So I think we can, well, maybe we'll squeeze in one more question. So St. Luke's grade 6-7s are joining us. And they want to know, you showed us the hand that you were working on, the glove. How long did something like that take to develop?
Oh my, so, that's the other interesting things about inventions. It's not a one and done. I would say we worked on that glove for over 10 years, but that doesn't mean it took us 10 years to use it. I'll tell you the very first thing I did is that I was working with, again, a young child with cerebral palsy. And they didn't have what's called fine motor control. Like they couldn't actually use a keyboard or a mouse. They couldn't do this, okay? They couldn't kind of move their fingers in a very precise movement, but they could move their hand around. They could control the movement of their hand. So what I did is my very first sensors, I actually put into a Lego piece. I put sensors in a Lego piece, and then I put those sensors just within reach. So all the young boy named Jay, all he had to do was put his hand in that general area, and it was a light sensor. So it would just sense when his hand was close to it, and it would activate the computer mouse. So that was the original inspiration. How could we help kids like Jay actually control a computer mouse? And so from there, we took that sensor and we put it into a very simple glove that measured the bending of his hand. So now he could make a fist and control the mouse. Well, then we thought, well, what if we could now put a sensor in every finger? And so now when you change your finger shape or do sign language, it would capture that as well. So it was an evolution over many years. And then we started getting funding from like National Institutes of Health or Department of Education that wanted us now to create a product with sensors in that glove. So I would say that was about a 10-year journey. Now we were doing other things as well at the time, so we weren't only focused on that. But then guess what? When that first glove came to market and was on the market, guess what? Sensors change. So now the sensors that we were buying at Best Buy or Radio Shack back then to use in the glove, they no longer made them anymore because they had new sensors. So then you have to redesign the glove. So we kept redesigning and redesigning and redesigning. So anyway, it's invention is not one and done. It's a process that keeps going as long as you want it to.
All right, very cool. Well, I think we're ready to play a little Kahoot together.
Yes.
The groups joining have slowed down. So let's get that going. Once I find my mouse, which just disappeared on my screen. Let's see. There we go. Okay, here we go. There are 4 questions, true and false, multiple choice. The quicker you put in the right answer, the more points you're going to get. So here we go. All right, question 1. Cori's background is in neuroscience and was it exploration? Was it aerospace, medicine, or electrical engineering? So if you remember right at the beginning, she listed 2 things. One was neuroscience. What was the other one? Exploration, aerospace, medicine, or electrical engineering?
Oh, you're tricky.
A little bit, yeah. All right. There we go. Good job, crew. We couldn't fool them, though. Most went with aerospace, which is really cool. Yeah, let's see what our leaderboard looks like. The Wonder GNU is in first place, but it's close. Let's see what happens on our next question. True or false coming your way? After a new technology is invented, the next question is, what else can we do with it? Is that true or is that false? Or is it just it's invented and that's all the technology is good for? What do you think? True or false? You have 8 seconds to get your answer locked in. I see well over 170 answers have already been locked in, and there's a couple more seconds to go. All right, that's absolutely true. I think that's a really cool thing about technology too, is some person sees it one way and then other people have visions and take it to a whole new level and build on it. All right. The Rapid Sphinx has fired up to the top of the leaderboard. We've got another true or false coming your way. VR headsets have never been on the International Space Station. Is that true or is that false? That virtual reality headsets have never been on the International Space Station. Halfway, 10 seconds to go. Over 160 answers already. All right, we know that's false. In fact, we even saw a picture of an astronaut named Greg using a VR headset on the International Space Station. Very cool.
And there's one up there right now being used to help them exercise.
All right. So is that kind of like to make it more interesting? Are they jogging down a road or? Yeah.
Yep.
All right, cool. Lucky Goat has the top spot. We have one more question to go and we'll take a look at our podium. Anyone can be an inventor. Is that true or is that false? Anyone can be an inventor. True or false? I think our students are going to knock this one out of the park. That's my guess. That's my theory. You've got 8 seconds to lock in an answer, and then we're going to switch gears to Q&A. So if you are tuning in via YouTube, send questions in via the chat for us, and I'm going to start visiting some of our camera classrooms. Good job, crew. Overwhelmingly, our students believe that anyone can be an inventor. We can all have ideas to solve problems. Awesome. So if we look at our leaderboard, in 3rd place, we've got Rocky Rhino. In 2nd place, the Clever Emu. And holding down the coveted top spot for today, the Lucky Goat held on for the last 2 questions. Very cool. All right. I'm going to come back from that screen share. I'm going to turn off that music in the background, and we are going to start visiting some classrooms. So who should we go visit first? Let's go. We've got some grade 6s at St. Isabel hanging out with us. I'm going to bring them in. Hey, grade 6s. All right. Does anybody have a question for Cori today?
You have to come real close.
Yeah. Okay, so what are the fascinating capabilities that robots can do now in 2024?
Wow, that's a really, really good question. Fascinating capabilities of robots. Well, let me just first say that there's no agreed upon definition of what a robot is. So, for example, is your car a robot? Is it only a robot if it's self-driving? So there's interesting question. A robot can just be something that senses something and acts on it. So that includes your dishwasher, probably. That includes a lot of things in our home that we don't really think about. Our phone really technically is a robot because it senses you and then it changes and then it acts on certain things. So let me just say that first. Robots are everywhere. Robotics are everywhere because robots, a definition of a robot in my mind is just something that senses something and then automatically acts. So I think drones are really cool. One of the coolest applications, I was just in Africa this summer and I went to visit a company called Zipline, and they deliver medical supplies all over Rwanda and some other parts of Africa just using drones. It's automatic. The drone comes in, they put the medical equipment in it, and it flies off. And so it's all this, and then it drops by parachute. So that was super cool. So other applications of robots. I think that when we think about like prosthetic legs, like I don't know if you watch the Olympics, the Paralympics, but some of the technology that these athletes use on their own bodies, the prosthetic legs, for example, those are becoming more and more robotic. Now, they're not allowed to be robotic in Paralympics, but if you think about just when you think about a prosthetic leg, there are now robotic legs because it gives you more stability. It allows people to walk who maybe couldn't walk with just a simple prosthetic. So I think there's so many cool applications. I can go on forever. I'll stop there. But those are 2 really fascinating ones: the drone delivery of medical supplies and robotic prosthetic.
Great. Thank you, Rishi.
All right. Very cool. I think I see someone in behind.
Sure.
Who was the first person who made a robot?
Oh my goodness. I don't know that anyone's ever asked me that. And I don't know the answer to that question. That's a very fascinating question because I don't know that so way back when people started automating things, they didn't call them a robot, they called them like automatons. So they would use gears and levers and they would make things automatically, like when you a wind up, have you ever used a wind up doll where you wind it up and then it walks, but there's no computer in it? So a lot of the early robots weren't called robots, they were called automatons, and they were just really cool, crazy things made out of gears and and chains and levers. If you Google that on a computer, maybe your teacher can help you find some of the early autonomous.
All right. Great questions, everybody. Very cool.
Can we squeeze one last?
All right, we'll squeeze one more and then we'll go to another classroom.
What is the most hardest invention you did with your colleagues?
Oh my goodness, the hardest invention I did. So I didn't actually show you this one. This one is super cool. This is a really difficult invention because it tries to take something that really, there's a medical device that you can have surgery and it goes in and it stimulates your vagus nerve. Your vagus nerve is the superhighway that brings signals from your brain to every part of your body. And I was asked to work with a doctor, a surgeon, to say, can we try and take that vagus nerve stimulator so that we don't need to do surgery and we can stimulate the vagus nerve through your ear, through what's called the symbocompa part of your ear. So I created with my team, we actually used some headsets, bought some headsets, and then we added some electronics. And then, I don't know if you can see it, but there's like these little electrodes right here in the headset, and that puts electricity into your ear. So it was difficult in a lot of ways. It was a very challenging problem. How do we not do surgery? And then it was very challenging because now it's very complicated to get something like that to market. You have to get lots of permissions and do lots of studies, and it takes a very long time. So I would say that's the most difficult, the toughest invention.
All right. Great questions, grade sixes. Miss Barha's class is hanging out with us in California. How are we doing?
Can any of the robots become evil?
Can they become people? You know what? I don't think robots are going to become people. They might look like people, but I think people are going to become more like robots. Because, for example, I just had a new knee. I have a robotic knee. Like I had surgery, I have a new knee. I had eye surgery to make my eyes better. I think that people are going to become more like robots rather than robots becoming more like people. So that's not everyone thinks that, but that's what I think. What do you think?
What do you think? Hands up. You think people are going to become more like robots? They're thinking about it. So, maybe.
Maybe.
All right. I think I see someone else peeking in. You have a question, bud?
Yeah.
How many robots have you built?
How many what? Robots?
How many robots have you built so far?
How many robots have I built? Well, I mean, a whole bunch, because for years and years and years, I've been coaching robotics teams and building robots with my kids and family. So if you count, like, for example, this is a robot that's made by some of the students here today. And this robot, they're learning how to build robotics. They're learning how to build robots. So I've built hundreds of robots like this, okay? But if you mean how many robots have I built like Cosmobot, there were only 3. There were only 3 Cosmobots built, because then we decided to turn to software. So Cosmobot was only used for research. So anyway, so there's lots of ways to think about robots. I've built a lot of robot controllers. So like the instrumented glove, that controls robots, but I didn't build the robots themselves. So there's lots of different parts to robots, and I've been involved with different aspects of it.
All right. We're going to grab another crew here. Let's go to Illinois. We have Avoca West hanging out with us. How are we doing today, everyone?
Great. I've got a few here. Okay, come back. Vika going up. Oops. Step back a little bit, okay? Okay, Vika,
How
go ahead.
many robots have you and your colleagues built in the past 10 years?
Oh my goodness, so very specific in the past 10 years. So the short answer is 0 for the company, because we started becoming known for our ability to build controllers, like the glove that I showed you, or we built some other types of wearable controllers. We did some more virtual reality. So we kind of moved away from building the robots themselves, except for the education robots I just showed you. We built lots of education robots, but we mostly now build the controllers, like the glove.
You told us that at the beginning.
All right. Good question.
Oh, I got it.
Hold on. Okay, Fatima, can I get a couple in?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay, Fatima, and then
How long does it take you to make at least one robot?
Oh, well, so it really depends how complicated it is. Like I do some challenges with kids where we race toothbrush robots. It's actually a really cool thing. You take the head of a toothbrush, so you have to break off the handle of the toothbrush, and you put a motor on it, and you tie the motor to it, and then it actually, when you turn it on, then you do a little battery and a motor, and then you can put the robot on a little path, and they can race each other. So that's a robot. It's just a motor and a battery and a toothbrush. So I do that with kids all the time. We race it's called a brush bot. So we race brush bots all the time. So that's a very quick robot. Now, when you're talking about a robot like Cosmobot, that can take a long time. Like that might take 6 months to design it, to print it, to connect all the motors. I mean, that could take maybe 6 months.
All right. I think we have one more there, maybe.
Yep, go ahead. Can I go after? Go ahead. Nope, I think this is our last one right now.
Have you ever built any like entertainment robots?
Ooh, so that's really interesting. We haven't built an entertainment robot, but what we did is, now when you see animations on TV, a lot of times those animations come from wearable sensors that people are wearing, and their movements are being captured to make the animations more accurate. So, for example, we've done things like put this glove, when we put on the glove with the sensors, and then make the sensors go up the arm, we can capture all those movements and then program a robot or an animation to move more naturally, like a human. So we've done that.
All right. Very cool. Thanks, grade 3s. Great questions. Mrs. Stiff's grade 8's class, you sent a question via the chat, but I'll bring you in case you want to unmute and ask the question if your student wants to come up and ask. Otherwise, I can ask it from the chat as well, but I'll just give a second, see if you want to unmute and ask the question. There we go.
Hi. There we go. How long did it take you to get all of your education done?
How long did it take to get my
years.
education?
Yeah.
Was that the question?
Yeah.
Sorry, I had a little bit of an echo. I just wanted to make sure. Yeah, okay. So I did 4 years of college. So at the university, I majored. That was when I did some of the math and the biology and psychology. That was 4 years at college. And then I went to 6 years of graduate school to get my master's in aerospace engineering and my PhD in neuroscience. So that's pretty normal for a PhD, a master's and PhD, about 6 years. So, but I had fun. Like those 6 years, it wasn't like being in school like you are now. You have your own life, you have an apartment, you can go in, different times of day, you're working. So it's kind of like having a job. Graduate school is more like having a really fun job than actually going to school. So I highly recommend it.
All right, very cool. Any other questions there, grade 8s, before I jump to another crew? All right, cool. Thanks for hanging out. Who should we visit? St. Luke's grade 6-7s. They sent a cool question in the chat, so I'll pop them in and see if they want to ask the question. So you're in grade 6-7s. There they are. Hey, St. Luke's.
What are you working on right now?
Oh my goodness, what a great question. I was waiting for someone to ask me that. So I'm actually working with a really cool inventor. It's not my invention, but there's a young woman from California, Sydney Collin, who invented this really cool device, which I have with me here today. So this is a device that attaches, it's called NextStride. It attaches to any walker or cane, and what it does is it helps the elderly walk and prevent falls. So it's super cool. It's really based in neuroscience, because what happens when you get older, or if you get a disease like Parkinson's or you have a stroke, the pathway from your brain telling you to walk doesn't work as well. Like, have you ever seen someone who kind of walks and they kind of shuffle? Well, what this does is you turn it on, and I don't know if you can hear this. So using sound, if you can hear the metronome.
Yep.
Or using a light, I don't know, can you see the laser on the floor?
It's just a little too low.
A little too low? Here, let's see.
Oh, there we go. Yep.
So using a laser or that sound, what it does is it literally changes the pathway in your brain. It says, you know what, walking isn't now a self-directed movement, it's now a goal-directed movement. And any of you who might do dance or ballet or ice skating know that if you focus on something, you have better balance. Has anyone ever noticed that? Maybe with sports? It's very hard. If you try and stand on one leg with your eyes shut like this, that's very difficult. But if you have your eyes open, it's much easier because it's a different brain pathway. And it's the same principle. When you have a visual or that sound, an auditory cue, it makes walking easier. So that's what I'm working on now.
All right. Very cool. And thanks for that great question, 6-7s. I'll just check to see if you have another one. Otherwise, we'll grab our next group. Okay, I think we're ready for our next group. Our Fab 4-5s are going to finish this off with our camera questions.
What is the most helpful robot you have created, and has it saved any lives?
Oh my goodness. Let's see, so I would say that, so similar to what I said earlier, where we really started, our expertise was in developing controllers for robots. So if you've heard of the Da Vinci robot, the Da Vinci robot is a robot that does surgery. Now it's controlled by a surgeon. But these are very expensive robots. They're millions of dollars. And the Da Vinci robot saves lives all the time. That's not my robot. But what I've done, what my company did, is we actually developed trainers, low-cost trainers, so that you could train doctors and surgeons to know how to do robotics. So it's not, we didn't directly save lives through doing surgery on someone who needed it, but we're helping to train the doctors using our technology and our wearables. So it absolutely, you know, it takes everyone to save lives. And so I think, yeah, save lives.
Awesome.
Okay, we can squeeze one more in if you have one more question.
Okay, yes, we do. It's Alisa.
Perfect.
What is the most common tool or part that you use to make a robot?
What's the most common part?
Or tool.
Part or tool.
Or tool. I would say motors are the most important. Motors, because motors make things move. And to me, that's the coolest part about robots. They move. They have an arm that can pick something up. or they have a motor that operates a wheel and it goes, or operates control to make it fly. So for me, the most important part is that motor. Now, the motor doesn't work unless it has power and unless it has sensors and things that it has to move. But I think a motor is kind of the coolest part. You can do a lot of things with motors.
So we have to have some motors. Awesome.
All right.
Thank
for
you.
I'm going to grab one question here from YouTube, Cori. This is kind of an interesting one. So we know that organ transplants, your body can reject it. So our students here in Hamilton, Ontario want to know, can the body do the same thing with robotic parts? Can it reject robotic parts?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. That's a very scary thing about having implants. They can potentially get infected, or you can have an allergic reaction to certain types of metals. For a long time, there were, you're absolutely right. The body can reject any foreign object, and it also raises the risk of infection. So those are very scary potential risks. And so you don't want to do those things lightly. But I do believe that, we're doing research now on how to preserve our brain function as we age, so that we don't lose our memories. That may end up including something that we insert in our brains. We know how to do that safely now because we do that for some diseases. We actually can insert things into the brain, like for severe epilepsy. But you're absolutely right. It's very risky.
All right. Well, I want to start off with a huge shout out to our classrooms today. We had such a great group, so many questions on YouTube as well as our live classrooms. A few had to go out for recess, but I still got a couple kicking around backstage with me. So if you want to give a big wave, there's a couple of our groups hanging out back there. Barhead's group, I think they went out in California. Very cool. It's great to have you with us. Cori, thank you so much for taking us on a little journey today to see some of the projects you've been working on. And we definitely have a lot of curious students out there about inventions and robots, that's for sure.
That's great. Thank you so much. It was really fun.
All right. Thanks, everyone. We are going to sign off for today.